and thank you for joining us on this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Équinoxe Television, live from my headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. I am Bable Jonathan. In our top stories in this edition of the news, the tourism sector suffers the consequences of the Anglophone crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon. A case in point in this newscast is the slave trade village of Bimbia in the Limbe 3 subdivision. Before the crisis started late 2016, it was a highly visited tourist attraction which has today become more or less a shadow of itself, and efforts are now being made to revive the tourism potentials of the Limbe slave trade village in Bimbia. And we'll be bringing you details in this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast, in which we will also talk about violence that has cut off the hand of a young man in Njombe in the Mongo Division, Littoral region of the Republic of Cameroon. His hand was cut off during a fight between two gangs of gangsters in that part of the country as violence rises in the youth milieu in the Republic of Cameroon. And out of the country, at least 2 persons have been killed and several others wounded in anti-regime protest in N'Djamena, capital of Chad. We begin this newscast in the Bimbia slave trade village in the Limbe 3 subdivision, southwest region of the Republic of Cameroon. It is one of the tourist attractions in the crisis-stricken southwest region that has suffered and is still suffering the consequences of the more than 4-year-long armed conflict in the English-speaking regions of the Republic of Cameroon. Before the start of the crisis, late 2016, it was a highly visited tourist attraction, but today very few persons visit that area, and the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, and other partners are now striving to revive the tourist potentials of that site. Details with our Southwest correspondent, David Sunmaimo.
The Bimbia slave trade village in Limbe 3 subdivision, Fako division of the southwest region, is not exempted from the effect of the ongoing Anglophone armed conflict affecting the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. The tourism office under the Limbe 3 Council and a guest house abandoned. Ongoing projects at the site suspended. Most of the electrical poles, light and pipe-borne water installed are begging for rehabilitation.
I've lost the number of tourists that we usually have in a year. We also have a problem of bad contractors, and some who abandoned their projects because of the socio-political.
However, the visit of UNESCO Regional Director for Central Africa, 3 years after the site was earmarked to be listed among World Heritage Sites, has rekindled hope.
UNESCO will spare no effort to assist in having this process completed as soon as possible with all the international standards.
The area was a marketplace where Cameroonians were bundled and shipped to Europe as slaves.
When we see especially the point, the door of no return, these are things that really touch you, but we are not talking about slaves, we are talking about free men and women who were captured. This is the historical fact that we are trying to revalorize. I want all the students, the children, the young men and women of this country to get to know their own history, to get to know the exceptional richness that Cameroon has.
What is left at the site are remnants of the slave trade market structures.
The more important point for us and the more important objective is 3D recreation, 3D modeling, and this is exactly what the UNESCO team will be working.
It's going to bring change in every facet of society. Definitely, it's going to be a great change. Limbe 3 is going definitely to be the place to look onto.
The project, which is in its first phase, shall greatly involve the local community.
And another consequence of the 4-year-long armed conflict in the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon is the rising rate of unemployment, especially among young people. Many have been rendered jobless by the security situation in that part of the country, in the northwest and of course in the southwest regions of the country. And in the northwest region, young people have been encouraged to embrace agriculture as it ensures food security. And the call was made by the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Gabriel Bairobe, who visited the region. Details with our correspondent, Stella.
Statistics from the Northwest Cooperative Association reveal that there has been an increase in the tons of coffee collected from farmers in the Northwest region, that is, from 748 tons in 2015 to 958 tons in 2020. Farmers say the yields could be better without the crisis in the Northwest and Southwest regions of the country. Also, factors like irregular government support and climate change have reduced the yield per coffee plant.
I get 10 hectares. When things they no be done there for this crisis, I will harvest 10 bags of Arabica, 20 bags of Robusta, 5 bags of cocoa. But today, for Arabica, I feel just to say, under hard struggle, I don't manage to forget 5. Then Robusta, I don't manage to get 3. Then cocoa, and again at 1, because that way it will be for need me for spray and for take care of it. I know if you go for them because of the crisis.
Despite the challenges in coffee cultivation, transformation has been a hindrance to everyone having coffee at table. The machine at the factory in Bamenda is old and can only produce between 160 to 540 kilograms of coffee per week.
Our machinery is quite an old machine. It is more than 50 years old. So the capacity too is low and cannot produce large scale for the market. So we have limited production.
During his 3-day stay in Bamenda, Gabriel Bairobe, Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, inaugurated a new factory that will add value to coffee production in the Northwest region. He also visited the rice fields in Dop, where work is ongoing to relevel 250 hectares of rice fields, 3,000 linear meters of canals, rehabilitation of 10 mini dams, and the reconstruction of 6 bridges. At the end of his 3 days visit, Minister Gabriel Bairobe encouraged the youth to engage in the cultivation of rice and coffee in particular, and agriculture as a whole, as it is vital for food security.
Cameroon's Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Gabriel Bairobe, and other authorities and stakeholders striving to downplay or to turn down the adverse consequences of the Anglophone crisis on agriculture and food production in the northwest region of the Republic of Cameroon. On to something else now. 2 suspected fraudsters who are said to have been involved in the production or establishment of fake documents are now in the dragnet of security and defense forces in the country's economic capital, Douala. They were arrested by elements of the judicial police, notably the anti-gang unit, and presented to the public's Magic and Gabriel Hasmo.
It was another busy day for the elements at the judicial police station in Bonanjo. 2 alleged fake documents producers were arrested by the anti-gang unit at the judicial police station. The chief of the anti-gang unit says it took them 3 days to arrest these 2 after they had the information. Through information we got from our agents on the field, we were told about fake fiscal stamps circulating and civilians using them innocently. Instructions from the top hierarchy made us to send some men to the field, and that is how we caught up with the persons who have been fooling our civilians.
Nous avons pu identifier les meneurs, ceux qui fabriquaient des faux termes et les donner aux usagers qui allaient les écouler ailleurs.
The anti-gangs who were sent to the field returned not only with the 2 alleged fraudsters but a photocopier that they have been using in doing their documents. Documents already signed and stamped with names of top authorities alongside more than 1,500 fiscal stamps. One of the alleged fraudsters says it is because he is unemployed that is why he decided to indulge into such business. The action taken by the anti-gang unit of the Judicial Police Station was supervised by the Divisional Commissioner Umaru, who took command few days back. The 2 will be taken to the court for justice to take its course.
Security and defense forces in the Republic of Cameroon have also been stepping up the fight against insecurity, rising crime wave and violence, especially among young people in major cities of the country as well as in remote areas. In one of the recent incidents of violence in Jombe in the Mongo Division Littoral region of the country, a student of Government Technical High School in Jombe saw his hand cut off by his friend. He was involved in a fight between 2 groups of gangsters. Innocent as has more.
Je conseille aux jeunes que la violence n'est pas bien. Et je demande aux gens de prier beaucoup pour moi.
Pafen Jontenu Tala is the victim's name, currently undergoing treatment and psychological follow-up in the hospital after his hand was slashed off with a machete in a barbaric group fight last Friday at about 4 p.m. in quartier Computer 1.
On a coupé tel que moi-même je m'étais aussi blessé à la paume de main. Je n'avais pas su que la main était amputée.
The fight involved some young men from Quartier Computer and those from Quartier Mbwale, where Pafe lives in Jombe, in the Jombe Penja subdivision. It generated from a squabble on Thursday during a funeral vigil. The next day, that is Friday, Pafe, a student of Jombe Technical High School, alongside his friends in Quartier Mbwale, mobilized for a return phase fight in Computer, what is commonly referred to as Retour.
Quand les enfants sont partis, sont revenus avec
Locals attest Pafe and his group stormed Computer and began throwing stones and other projectiles at some of the young men they had clashed with at the funeral vigil Thursday. Despite pleas advanced by some locals to stop, they ignored telling them to mind their business. Unfortunately for the Mbwale gangsters, those in Computer responded as they came out throwing back stones, also armed with machetes and other deadly objects. With the fast approach of the Computer gangsters, Pafe, who went down to get a stone to throw at them, saw his hand stretched to pick up the stone slashed off. He quickly picked up his own hand and ran for his life.
L'enfant a perdu son membre jusqu'à se tomber. Il a ramassé et à un niveau, il est quitté sur la moto, tombé au goudron.
The victim was quickly rushed to the Moncoupé hospital, where doctors are taking care of him. Though he lost so much blood, doctors assured the worst had been handled, prescribing a psychological follow-up of the victim. In the meantime, the gangsters are on the run, and investigation has been opened by officials at the Njombe police station to track them down for justice to be done.
Boya City dwellers who have been illegally occupying streets for business and those occupying waterways and other public spaces for habitation are now facing forceful eviction, and their properties may be destroyed in the coming days as the council launches a clean-up campaign, not only to clean up the town but to get the town rid of urban disorders. Derijato report.
A moment ago, this particular street was a footpath. It has now been opened and it is a full street. We are in Boya town. It is a neighborhood in Boya subdivision. But the victims have their own story.
I'm directly involved. This other one too, you see, like behind me, the things are, it's happening. There are good luggages still inside the house. You know, it came in. I mean, I'm so depressed.
Makako, they don't shakara again. They government help me now. I didn't know. Oh, they give me now some place. I go build their deeds.
We have seen victims trying to pick what they could lay their hands on as their properties. They told us that they have been taken unawares. But the councillors or the workers of the Boya Council made us to understand that those who were blocking this road or occupying this particular street in the name of building houses were notified months back, but they failed to do their own job. Reason why the Boya Council has taken its responsibility.
The victims should just encourage themselves. We are encouraging them. You know, development move with destruction.
At this particular moment, we have been made to understand that the demolition exercise will continue right further. It is a street that is some kilometers, and the Boya Council has met everyone to understand that this is just the beginning, and in the nearest future they will be going to other neighborhoods to open this street, because the Southwest Regional Capital defeat a well-structured town, which has not been the case over the years. And that is how we saw Boya this Tuesday, the 27th day of April 2021. The action has already been taken, the message has been sent, and those who are occupying roads and other public spaces in the name of construction, the Boya Council is sending us strong signals that they are coming. The town of Boya will need to take a befitting shape. I am Derek Jato for the news, signing out.
Thanks, Derek Jato reporting from Boya. Coming up, Immaculate Fogwe takes a look at how community radios in Cameroon are helping to enhance development and the well-being of inhabitants of local or remote communities in the country. She takes us to Barebakem in the Mongo Division, littoral region of the Republic of Cameroon, where the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization and the United Nations Development Program are helping community radio workers to do better in what they have been doing in communicating about issues in their communities, and in also relating to the population, collaborating with the population to enhance development and the well-being of the areas. It was in this report by Immaculate Fogwe.
A heated debate on the coronavirus pandemic taking place in a local palm wine joint in Barebakem in the Mongo Division, littoral region. The debate sparked off after these members of the Listeners Club got informed by community radio station in their area on the dangers of COVID-19.
The other day I saw a father coming back from the farm, and I asked if he listened to what was said on radio concerning COVID-19. But he said no. Then I started to explain what was said. I told him that it was important to respect barrier measures against COVID-19, such as regular hand washing, the wearing of face mask, and the washing of hands regularly.
We try to talk it. We speak it.
Persons living in rural areas like Barebakem may have not seen what the COVID-19 virus was doing in other parts of the world due to the unavailability of electricity and poor internet network. Directives from government and health officials on behavioral changes such as social distancing and discouragement of handshakes and hugs is competing with deep-rooted cultural values. The Voice of Diversity Community Radio in Barebakem is determined to provide credible information to the public with regards to COVID-19.
We have created programs which sensitize the public on daily basis. We also make use of vernacular language. The different listeners club we created are equally creating an impact on the field. We are collaborating with the administrative, religious and health officials so that the message has a direct impact.
C'est une façon pour nous également de nous rassurer qu'ils écoutent vraiment les programmes. On y va, on fait parfois.
Say that the impact is positive because in this area people used to listen. They have programs concerning the region. That's why it's an opportunity to have this radio here, and when there's anything that can be said or can be talked to the radio is concerning people or I don't know, they always know about it.
Seeing the necessity of community radios, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization has decided to partner with some community radios.
But we know in this kind of crisis, one of the main fight that we have is a fight for the right information, since we are in a context of infodemic. So what we thought is that we should give a particular role to community radio so that they will give the right information to remote area populations. Then they will fight against infodemic according to the realities of these different communities, talking with their languages, their local realities. And we also thought of involving them in promoting more community participation, community engagement in the fight against COVID-19, because we can have
community radios play a critical role by informing people about matters that affect their lives. These radios have succeeded to build trust within communities.
At least 2 persons have been killed and several others injured in anti-regime protest in N'Djamena, capital of Chad. Details with Fomi Armstrong Sanda.
A tense and smoking Chadian capital N'Djamena, 1 week after the death of its leader Idriss Déby Itno. Responding massively to the opposition planned protest demonstration against the Transitional Military Council and France's support for General Déby, the angry Chadian youth say they no longer want French presence in Chad. No to Mr. Macron. We are tired. Some accuse France of peeling and exploiting their Chad. France, leave our Chad alone. The protest, which began less tensed in the 7th and the 9th districts of N'Djamena, Chad, will later become violent with burnings, lootings, destructions and shootings.
Vous êtes en train d'écrire les plus belles pages de l'histoire de notre pays. Il y a eu l'étape qui a été gagnée.
On the line to N'Djamena, Chad, Chadian opposition leader, Success Masra of the Transformation Party revealed that at least 2 persons died and several others wounded in the course of the protest demonstration. While calling for this nationwide protest demonstration, Chadian opposition leaders warned France to refrain from meddling. They also called on the Chadian people not to obey the Transitional Military Council, calling it illegitimate.
Coming up next, Talking Point. We are receiving a political analyst, Andrine Atem Ebako Bisson. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you very much.
We begin with the last images. At some few seconds ago, a tense Chadian capital in N'Djamena, protests rising up against the regime of President Idriss Déby Itno. What do you think about these protests and the tense situation there in Chad?
Well, I would not be very surprised that the Chadians seem to have been relieved by an individual who had taken that nation hostage and has kept his people under bondage for so many years, ever since 1990. You know, it doesn't, from the experiences that the people of Chad have seen, they have realized that the democratic government has not been in their favor. And this is what I've been saying time without number, that it will take a united front, it will take a united Africa to be able to take the battle to the global front. You see, when you have a nation where an individual feels that he can manage an entire nation without implementing a system by which he himself can depend on, and the population can also depend on that system, whereby the systems can outlift the presidents. That means power is rotational, while the system can only be upgraded because the system is designed to defend the national interests of the Chadians and to develop its nation. This is not what we have. We have an individual who seems to have every say in Chad. And like I was giving some analysis when some people were talking about Idriss Déby as a Pan-Africanist. That is, I would say,
he's known as a Pan-Africanist and like someone who contributed a lot for the stability not only of his country but the Sahel zone and even parts of the Central African Republic, with his consistent and steady fight against terrorism.
Yes, those analyses were made by the Westerners. Those analyses were not made by the Africans themselves. The Chadians that you see on TV, they themselves are testifying that Idriss Déby has not been a good leader to his own nation. It is just like telling me you have a rich father who has a very large empire, large estate, and yet his children go hunger, his children are starving, his children are unable to get good education. It doesn't tie up. So that is why I keep saying that Idriss Déby had been fighting the wrong battles. He has not been fighting battles in the interest of the Chadians. When you come into place as a head of state, it is just like a head of a family, a head of a community, a head of a society. You don't need to be a specialist. You don't need any education. But from what these leaders are trying to tell us is that you must be qualified, you must have traveled abroad, get education by the West to be qualified to be presidents in Africa, which is not true. Being a head of a family, you only need goodwill to develop your family. You don't need any special training. So Idriss Déby does not need to stay in power for 30 years or 36 years to bring the kind of change which befits the people of Chad.
How is fighting for the stability of his country, fighting against rebels, fighting against terrorists, not only in his country but in the Sahel zone, in parts of the Central African Republic, a wrong battle?
You see, when people go and create monsters, at the end of the day, they start shifting their failures and start titling these people terrorists. That is why I'm telling you that the people who are making this analysis that these men are terrorists, to some other people, they are heroes. But because African leaders have been fighting the battles of the West, a clear example to make it very simple for every African to understand what I'm trying to say. If you take an example of the situation here in Cameroon today of the Northwest and the Southwest, take a look at our elites, our chiefs who fled those two regions. Why did they become a major target to this resistance group on ground? Because these individuals decided to cooperate with the government, and automatically they became now an enemy to the ground forces on ground. This is the same thing. When you keep fighting the battle of another person, you see, that's why I keep saying that one of the things that we always have problem is that we have believed every little thing that has ever been told to us by the West, from our identity to our name, to when we gain independence, to our education, to our health, right to coronavirus. They did not permit the African researchers to come up with their own remedy. We have received remedies from the WHO. And this is the same thing I'm saying, that we need to sit down and analyze who really are these men. I don't want to go into the genesis of terrorism in Africa, but what I'm trying to say here is that Idriss Déby has not been fighting for the stability of his nation. I'll give you a very clear example so that we can make comparison to know people who are fighting for their nation. Take a good look at Thomas Sankara. For 4 years, he was in power. He was able to take a country from a percentage of 13% of illiteracy to 73% of literacy in his nation. In the space of 2 weeks, he was able to vaccine 2,500,000 citizens of his country. He was able to give scholarship to pregnant women. What did Thomas Sankara not do? He gave one of the only presidents who gave women top positions in his government. That was just within a short period of time. Any country's leader who depends on his population, the first priority will be health. He made sure that the citizens of that Upper Vora, which became Burkina Faso, he made sure they had access to a medical system. This is just to tell you that when a leader depends on his people, he makes sure that the priorities which a leader needs to develop his nation will depend on his human resources.
Right.
But when you have a leader like this that depends on foreign aids, that continues to receive aids from the West to fight against terrorists, those are enemies of the West. Those are not enemies of Africa. These are monsters which the West created, and now they have now become our enemies because we feel that everything that comes from the West is true, which is not so.
Earlier you mentioned his long stay in power, about 3 decades, and he got a sit term in office before he died. How is it a problem? Long stay in power.
The issue here is not how long you stay in power or how short you stay in power. The issue here is reflecting the people in which you represent. Is very important. It's like standing in front of a mirror and having that mirror to reflect the person standing in front of the mirror. So if you are a head of state in a nation, you should be able to reflect the people in which you represent. But this is not the case. How do you tell me that Idris Debris was a president in a country which does not own its own economy, does not have right to its own politics? It's just like telling me that we have Demarches as presidents. It is easy for us to just say Macron should come and be president in Chad.
Middleman.
Yes, middleman, because you are not there for the interests of your people. So if you take another example of Magufuli, for the 5 years he was in power, the examples he set in place were very, very clear. Tanzanians never had problems of electricity, health, education. There were so many things he did to develop that nation and brought it into a middle-income country. A country's GDP where he entered at a point where it was minus 6%. He was able to raise it to a middle-income class a country. These are the kind of leaders that we say these are leaders who have heart for their people. So it is not how long you stay in power. It is how much you are able to do.
And this protest in Chad seems to be announcing gloomy days ahead.
Exactly. It is an evidence to let you know that Idris Deby, for all the years he has been in power, he has been fighting the wrong battle. He has not been there defending the people of his country, improving their life. We have Chadians littered all over in Cameroon here. They are living in abject poverty. A country which is known to be one of the poorest countries in the world. Tell me, what battle has he been fighting to make those changes? None. He has been receiving praise. He's one of the biggest allies of France. So you cannot tell me who has he been fighting for? That's the question. He has been fighting the interests of France because France is one of the largest investors in Chad, same as in Nigeria, same as in Cameroon, in all the other 14 colonies that we have here. So it's just easy for us to understand that we have Demarches that are president. We have middlemen who are president. These are civil servants and clerks. It's better for us to just... How do you tell me a country that pays colonial tax does not have nationality of the country which receives tax from that country? Let me give you a good example. In the 1700s, when America gained its independence from Britain, the 13 colonies came together and refused that they were not going to pay their colonial tax to Britain. And that is how they decided to secede, and they went to war and fought for their independence. If you are paying colonial tax to a country, then it means that you are a citizen of that country. That is the logic about it.
Andrine Atem Ebako Bisson, political analyst. Thank you so much for your time. We'll certainly have another opportunity to take a listen to those interesting and sharp-pointed analysis of yours. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today. Equinoxe is up next.